is Archana Prasad. Archana is a video artist, activist, and co-founder and director of Jagga, which means space in Hindi. Established in Bangalore in August 2009, the Jagga project actually provides a social and collaborative place for artists, architects, and forward-thinking people. Jagga serves as a platform for Archana's work to build a stronger arts community, to positively impact public perceptions of the work of artists, and to harness the power of the internet in this negotiation. A particularly interesting mission of the Jagga project is to identify ways to engage and exist without weighing heavily on the Earth's limited natural resources. Archana's presentation will walk us through the mistakes, successes, and lessons she has learned in her quest to create ambience.
All right. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I should thank Fenella and Sunita for setting the stage for me. Fenella explained the third space, and Sunita beautifully took us into that. My talk this evening is about my little journey through a few projects that played with ambience, with architecture, with community building, and all of this through exploring and playing with space. So back in 2005, a few of my friends started a band called Lounge Piranha. They're a really great alternative band that has a very unique sense of sound. And for me as a visual artist, it was really inspirational to hang out at their jam rooms and be part of that performative space. And I constantly wanted to plug in, wanted to create in it. And the way I solved that desire was to actually start playing with light. So I would take small transparencies and scratch on them and write on them, and then project it onto the band while they were playing. And this worked out really well. It was really a good, positive response that I got from the band members themselves and from some of the people who were in the audience. And so I started to take that a notch higher, and I said, okay, if you're doing projections, you can't totally forget about the ambient light. So I started making little candles and placing them around, haggling with event managers and bar club owners to say, like, hey, I want the house lights switched off. I want to be able to control that light. And pretty soon, I realized that I was able to transport people through this ephemeral quality of light and sound and take them on journeys that they could imagine, that they could take off into. And I could direct that. I could control the ups and downs, turns and twists that they made in this third space. And it was an exhilarating power. It was fantastic. And I really wanted to share that. I wanted to share that with my peers, with fellow visual artists, and I didn't know where I could connect with them. And that's odd, given that I was born and raised in Bangalore and studied art there for 7 years. It was a little bit odd to me that I didn't know where I could go and connect with fellow artists. And so when my friend Suresh Kumar, a sculptor, when he approached me with this idea of Samuha, it was perfect. His idea was simple. He was like, hey, can we as a group of people, can we share a space, an autonomous space? Can we create a little kind of a shared area that we can show our work, where we can actually share our experiences as artists? And that was perfect. And so we started looking for a space, and the slide shows you how first, we got a really run-down space, convinced 24 artists to be part of this cooperative, and then actually transform it into a beautiful white cube in which we could do as we pleased, have complete control. And this was great. There were 24 artists, and over a span of a year and a half, 414 days, it was a time-bound project, we had several types of exhibitions, performances, talks, discussions. Senior artists like Aisha Abraham would work with found footage and then connect it to the history of the city and exhibit it in this space. Young emerging artists like Mangala, who had never had an exhibition before, found this to be the podium, the launch pad from where she could take off into a very successful art career. Projects like Bangalore City Project, which wanted to map neighborhoods, found this space to be the common ground where they could invite people to have talks, discussions, and exhibitions of what they had discovered of the neighborhoods in their city. And artists like Christoph could actually do exhibitions that applauded artists, activists who had done amazing work through interesting, filmy style posters. So this was great. It showed me something very significant, that space was a really interesting tool for community building. It could be the place where you could have a call for action. It could be the space for that action to play out. And that was an important lesson that I learned in that. Now, while I was doing all this, Freeman Murray, my partner at Jaaga, he was busy having fun with space as well. He was out in the US, in the middle of a desert, constructing these crazy structures with pallet rack shelving. And what he did with these structures was invite people to live in them, to spend time, to hang paintings, to explore art. And this was kind of incredible to think about. And he used this thing called pallet racks. So in India, we call them slotted angles. And they're meant for shelving, they're for warehouse shelving, basically. And you could stack all kinds of heavy objects on it, cars even. And so we decided that, hey, let's take this material that's universally available and play with that and see how Bangalore reacts to it. So it was great because I actually managed to convince Naresh Narasimhan, a famous architect in Bangalore, to give us a piece of empty land in the heart of the city. And off we went on this little project where we invited all kinds of people to join us in imagining how the structure would look, actually help us build it. And so we did. And in less than a week, we had this huge structure, which is about 10 meters high, 15 meters wide. And we built it ourselves. And very soon we realized that people were actually using that construction ground as a place to meet, to congregate, to perform, to exchange ideas. And so that was fascinating. But what was even more fascinating was that over time, after that 1 week and into a year and a half, people started to explore with how they could change that space, to negotiate it in different ways. Can I create walls with pieces of fabric? Oh my gosh, it's raining. What shall we do? Oh, let's use recycled billboards to provide rain shelter. So how about if we had performances that were designed for this kind of space, where bodies could move through it, where sound could travel around? And so this was great. In fact, not just the people of Bangalore, people from outside started to write into us. This artist, Eve Sibley, she calls herself a green artist. She plays with plants. And so she imagined and made a proposal of covering the facade of the building with plants. And so she came, spent almost 8 months with us, and ended up doing this, where we had these amazing vertical gardens, hydroponic system being fed by water, which kept circulating around. And the fascinating part about that is that these panels rotated. And on the other side, you had this excellent mural made out of urban waste, rusted pieces of metal and fabric, which Walker Babington did for us. So you can see that the structure, the space, not only became something that people used internally, but also started to use as a place to hang up their work, to show it out to the world, to the streets. And this was important for us. It showed us that space, or Jagga, is about not just the physicality of it, but also of the people themselves. And so Freeman and I started to focus our energy on community building enabling, facilitating people to use that structure, to use our space. And so we created ambiances that enable people to co-work, to do their office work there, or young design graduates to, have their first exhibition, or NGOs that had never even been formed to actually go out there and say, hey, this is the idea we have, what do you think? And so it went on. Film festivals happened, music festivals, activist movements, community gatherings, all kinds of things. And like I said, each of these events, and we've had more than 200 in over a year and a half or two, which is incredible, each of them changed the way the space looked and felt. People actually physically moved staircases from one end of the building to another. They said, oh, no, we don't want the people to enter from here. We want them to come like this and go like that. Can we do this? And this was great. I mean, for the first time, people could actually physically control their environment. And that's what it is. The crux of it is that here it is. We have a DIY structure, do-it-yourself structure, and that's a powerful tool to have. So here we are. The other interesting thing about it is that space, I was talking to a friend of mine, it's not just about the geography. You can move it. And so the structure actually moves. And so in June this year, just a few months ago, we were asked to leave the space that we inhabited earlier. And we raised a call to the community. And someone offered up another piece of land. And we started to pack. And within a month, we had packed down this entire structure, brought it down to ground zero, and then moved into a junkyard. Yeah, why not, right? Like, of course, that's where we want to be. So we spent, it was a lot of hard work, let me tell you. But this time we decided that we're going to do it completely just by ourselves and see how few people we can have. So it was Freeman, our first and strongest volunteer, Kiran, me, and one hired on help. And we changed this to this. We cleaned out the gardens. We cleaned out the junk, grew gardens. The Jaaga structure itself became 3 times the size. And we created dedicated space for people to exhibit, to perform, to have even flea markets, to relax, all kinds of things. So that's where we are with Jagga right now, which is great. It's fantastic. And that's what I learned. It's that space can be adapted, and most importantly, we can do it ourselves. So, I'm going to take you down the road into one more project before I take off, and that's the Malleshwaram Accessibility Project. Indra, you know Malleshwaram. So Malleshwaram is where I was born and raised, actually. It's an old neighborhood, one of the oldest in Bangalore, has a strong sense of history. It's a hotbed for culture, has all kinds of famous people based out of there, and it's beautiful. It's a traditional neighborhood, known for its old world charm, wonderful little eateries and walkways and tree-lined avenues and things like that. And unfortunately, it's now become a transit lounge. There's traffic everywhere, you can't cross the street, you can even get stuck in a traffic jam just outside your door for like 15 minutes if you wanted. And that's a bit tragic. So the idea we have now, given that definitely me, given that I've gone through these projects from Lounge Piranha to Samuha to now Jaaga, it gave me a sense of confidence that me, just a normal person with, some degree in painting and design, that I could maybe even change my neighborhood. And that's what we did. And we convinced the government. And so we have the local government involved in a project which is all about community engagement. So I said, hey, let's find out what people want from their neighborhood before going off and trying to solve the problem. Let's find out what their problems are. Let's find out what's important to them. And most importantly, let's find out what they hold dear to these spaces that they inhabit. What is the socio-cultural relevance of Malleshwaram? So it's a 3-month project. We started last month, and we're working with colleges, with students, with old age homes, with residents, with users, commuters, all of them in interviews, in conversations, in workshops, to try and understand how they can make that change, that difference. And that's what it is. And these last 2 slides I stole from the internet, and I've given courtesy, because apparently we're not supposed to take stuff unless it's under Creative Commons, and I couldn't quite figure where the copyrights lay. But the point is, this is a picture of Bombay and this of Bandra. And I wanted to say this, is that we can really control the change we want to see, that space is something that can create wonderful experiences, can actually take you to the third space that Fenella talked about, that Sunita took us into. It really can be the tool for change, from your own house, your own little bedroom, to the office you work in, to the streets you travel in, to the neighborhood that you were born and raised in, to the cities, and then the world, and that's it. That's world domination. That's the plan, right? So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much.